Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. Our guest today is Lee Kian Soon, CEO of Astral Asset Management out of Singapore. Now, Kian Soon, great to have you on the show.
Good afternoon.
Sorry for that little boo-boo at the start of the show. But before we get your insight, Kian Soon, we're going to take a look and see how crypto markets have performed first, and then we'll take a look at regional stock markets. We start with Bitcoin, which is at 30,467. It's up 0.35%. Ethereum is at 1,867. It's down 0.25%. Now, looking across to regional stock markets, we'll start close to home for you, Kian Soon, at the Straits Times Index is up 0.14%. Bursa Malaysia is up 0.32%, but Shanghai is down 0.58%. The ASX All Ordinaries is up 1.08%. The Nikkei is up 1.64%. The Hang Seng is down 0.24%. And rounding up the numbers, we've got the Kospi, which is down 0.67%. So a pretty mixed bag for today, Kian Soon.
Yes, I think we've seen the regional markets have some positive handover from the US markets. But obviously, the Chinese markets are not performing so good. So we see a slightly downtrend today.
Now, Kian Soon, I want to, since it's a special look back at this quarter and also a look ahead, but let's start at the first half of the year. What were the key highlights around equities in the first half of the year?
I think in the first half, volatility is definitely a key highlight. We started the beginning of this year with a lot of expectations on how the Chinese markets will recover, given that they have reopened from their COVID-19 lockdowns. It started with a big bang, but it sounded more like a flash in the pan, as we could see that, apart from January and February, the rest of the months have been pretty much of a toy in Chinese markets, mainly because of the disappointments that the investors have. With reference to the rate of recovery that we are seeing.
Now, so Kian Soon, then looking ahead to the second half of this year, what are some key things that we should be watching out for? There's a lot of uncertainty and volatility around markets from a geopolitical, from an economic standpoint as well.
That's correct. I think if you look at the second half of the year, there are a lot of expectations, mainly in a few areas. First, the concern for recessions or, even stagflation, as we are seeing in Europe, where, they are actually facing technical recessions and at the same time, very high inflations. And of course, their central banks will continue to look at interest rates hikes. For United States, I think after 10 rates hikes, finally, we got a pause in June. This month, but unfortunately, given the very strong economic numbers and also the high inflation around 4+%, there are a lot of expectations that the Fed will continue to raise rates in the coming months, and probably we could expect 1 to 2 times more rate hikes, which is probably very negative for businesses who are who needs to borrow, as well as for homeowners who have home loans, etc. For Asia in particular, it'll be a very interesting second half, as we could see really see that whether China's recovery will go into full play, given what we have witnessed in the first half of this year.
And China recovery has been much more muted than just about every analyst's expectation. You think that probably that could be better because of stimulus and stuff that they've just announced recently?
I think stimulus will be one main key driver for the Chinese recovery, given that the whole country is tightly run by the Communist Party, and a government-driven stimulus in the key sectors, for example, real estate or infrastructure, as well as trade, could actually provide the room for China to recover. I think the second thing we need to look at is in terms of inflation, China is not having inflationary problems like the rest of the world. It has lots of rooms for the government to actually lower interest. not to raise any interest rates like the rest of the world, and that will also provide more liquidity as well as strength to for a lot of business. So they have a different sets of problems, much to deal with the post-recovery situation that have not, happened as strong as anticipated. There are also limitations on outbound travel, etc., that we are seeing, which also affects, tourists in bound countries like Singapore, etc. So it'll be interesting developments we'll witness, in the coming months.
Now, Japan, obviously, in the first half of the year, had a huge re-rating. In fact, we've reached levels that we haven't seen in 30 years, everything from inflation to equity markets. What's your take on Japan moving forward in the second half of the year?
This is an interesting question, because Japan has always been hard, as in the central banks have continued to maintain very low interest rates. And we all knew that, there are a lot of anticipations that, this is not going to last too long, but somehow they have done it for the first 6 months. So far, so good. I think there'll be a lot of pressure for them to increase the interest rates, and therefore, we'll see a stronger yen in the coming months for Japan. I think meanwhile, their economy will continue to function as it is. The Japanese markets have benefited from what I call the trade that is provided by that Warren Buffett, that we see in the first half. He has invested heavily in the trading houses and created a huge boost. I think we're going to continue to witness, or let's see whether this trade made by Warren Buffett actually plays out in the coming months ahead.
Now, on that note, Kian Soon, thank you very much for your insights. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Now, I'm Brian Fernandez, and we've been speaking to Lee Kian Soon, CEO of Astral Asset Management, coming out from Singapore on BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. The show will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks a lot for tuning in.